2 years ago, I was diagnosed with a serious condition that completely took me by surprise. And my first thought was, God, what have I done to deserve this? What have I done wrong? And maybe you've been there before, or maybe you're there right now, wondering what you did to deserve whatever condition you're dealing with right now. But the scripture says that your condition is not a punishment. And that's what we're going to look at today. So let's jump right into it. In John chapter 9, Jesus and his disciples encounter a man who was born blind. And the disciples ask Jesus, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? You know, this is a real common belief that our suffering must be the result of sin or something we've done wrong. But Jesus answers, neither this man nor his parents sinned, but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. So Jesus rejects this idea that the man's blindness was punishment for sin or something he had done wrong. Illness isn't always a punishment or God's judgment on us, and usually it isn't. The book of Job makes this clear. Job was described as blameless and upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil. But he lost everything, including his health. So his friends insisted that he must have sinned or done something wrong to deserve it. But God himself declares that Job was righteous and the suffering wasn't his punishment. Unfortunately, sometimes we just suffer and there's no moral reason for it. When we look at how Jesus responded to illness throughout the Gospels, we see something consistent about him, and that's his compassion. In Matthew 14:14, when Jesus saw the crowds, he had compassion on them and healed their sick. You know, he never said, you don't deserve this. What did you do wrong? You must have sinned to deserve this. No, he healed them. In Mark 1:40-42, a man with leprosy comes to Jesus and says, if you are willing, you can make me clean. So Jesus reached out and touched this man that was considered unclean, someone others wouldn't even go near, and Jesus said, I am willing, be clean. So Jesus didn't see illness as something people deserved. Instead, he saw suffering people who needed healing. And we all know that sometimes healing doesn't come in this life. Paul, who was one of the greatest apostles, had what he called a thorn in the flesh, and many scholars believe this was some kind of physical ailment. In 2 Corinthians 12:7-9, Paul writes that he pleaded with the Lord 3 times to take it away, but God said to him, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. So Paul wasn't healed, at least not in the way he asked for, but God didn't abandon him or anything. God promised his grace would be enough to get through it. And what was Paul's response? Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weakness, so that Christ's power may rest on me. So the reality is that we live in a broken world. Romans 8:22-23 says, we know that the whole creation has been groaning as in the pains of childbirth right up to the present time. Not only so, but we ourselves who have the first fruits of the Spirit groan inwardly as we wait eagerly for our adoption to sonship, the redemption of our bodies. So we live in a fallen world. Sin entered creation in Genesis 3, and with it came death, disease, pain, and the suffering. It's not because each of us personally deserves our specific illness, but because we live in a world that's been broken by sin. Our bodies break down and we get sick and we die. That's the reality of life this side of heaven. But Paul says we're waiting for the redemption of our bodies. So complete healing is coming, just not yet. And when you're dealing with this illness or condition, you might feel all alone. You might be wondering where God is. Psalm 34:18, the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. God doesn't stand at a distance from our suffering. He draws near. In Psalm 23, David writes about walking through the valley of the shadow of death. Notice he doesn't say that God prevents the valley or anything like that. He says God walks through it with us. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. And Jesus himself experienced suffering. Isaiah 53, verse 3 prophesies about him. He was despised and rejected by mankind, a man of suffering and familiar with pain. Hebrews 4:15 says, "We do not have a high priest who is unable to empathize with our weaknesses, but we have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, yet he did not sin." So Jesus gets it. He knows what suffering feels like. He understands the pain we're going through. But God is a God of promises. In Deuteronomy 31:6, it says, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them, for the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you." Isaiah 41:10 says, "So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." In James 1 verses 2-4, it says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." And then we got in Revelation 21:4, where it describes the new heaven and the new earth. "He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away." So what does this mean for us? It means that it's okay to feel what you're feeling. You're human. The Psalms are full of cries to God over anger or pain, confusion and suffering and illness. So lay it on Him. God can handle it. He wants you to be honest with Him. And remember to use the resources available to you. I believe God works through doctors and medicine and the support of the community, the support of the church. And when I say church, I'm not talking about a building. I'm talking about the community of believers around you. Turn to them for emotional support and for prayer. That's what the community's there for. As Christians, we need to be there for one another, to build one another up, to support each other. An example of community is a friend of mine that had the same condition I did, except she had it several years ago when there was no real treatment for it. And she participated in trials, medical trials, to get the treatment that we have today. So thanks to her and people like her, we now have treatment for this condition. So those people are a real blessing to the rest of us, and I'm thankful for that. And one final thing is to remember that your worth isn't tied to your health. You're loved by God, not because of what you do, but because of who you are. You're His child, made in His image and likeness. And this isn't the end of your story. Complete healing is coming. A world without sickness is coming. Until then, remember that God is with you and that His grace is sufficient. You're not being punished, and whatever it is you're dealing with is only temporary. So hang in there and keep fighting the good fight. Keep God first place in your life. Healing is on the way.